Truth Unveiled here, keeping you updated with the latest. And today I want to talk more about banking and the bank meltdown 2016. Now, I know I covered this a little bit in yesterday's post, but I want to talk more about it today, as well as some more banking glitches that are going on and something else that I think will blow your mind away. Now, I'm here today at Activist Post, and this is a great post because it talks about what's been going on this week with the banks and how close we are to the collapse. Now, it says, what in the world is going on with banks this week? Emergency meetings, bank summits, crashing European banks, and the worst bank reports since the Great Recession. Oh, but everything's okay according to mainstream media. It's time to wake up. But it goes on to say just about every major banker and finance minister in the world is meeting with Washington, D.C. this week, following two rushed secretive meetings of the Federal Reserve and another instantaneous and rare meeting between the Fed chair and the President of the U.S. These and other emergency bank meetings around the world cause one to wonder what is going down. And I talked about more of this yesterday in my post about how the elite are moving out and getting ready for stuff, as well as in my post last week where I shared with you the different meetings and summits that have been going on about nuclear terror drones. Very interesting and suspicious indeed. But it goes on to say, let's start with the bullet list of this week's big bank events. The Federal Reserve Board of Governors just held an expedited special meeting on Monday and closed-door session, as well as one yesterday. The White House made an immediate announcement that the president was going to meet with the Fed chair, Janet Yellen, right after Monday's special meeting, and that Vice President Biden would be joining them. And mind you, this is the first time that that's ever happened. The Federal Reserve very shortly posted an announcement of another expedited closed-door meeting for Tuesday for the specific purpose of bank supervision. A G20 meeting of finance ministers and central bank heads starts in Washington, D.C. on Tuesday too and continues through Wednesday, which was yesterday. Then on Thursday, which was today, the World Bank and the IMF, or the International Monetary Fund, they met in Washington. The Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta just revised U.S. GDP growth for the first quarter to the precipice of recession at 0.1%. U.S. banks are widely expected this week to report their worst quarter financially since the start of the Great Recession. The EU, or our favorite, the European Union's new bail-in procedures for failing banks were employed for the first time with Austrian bank Heda Asset Resolution AD, and I did a video on that as well this week. And Italy's Minister of Finance called an emergency meeting of Italian bankers to engage last resort measures for dealing with 360 billion euros of bad loans in banks that have only 50 billion in capital. Now, mind you, does this mean anything big? Probably not, but it's interesting that all this stuff is going on at such a time as this and the timing of it. Now, we have to remember that, of course, the economic collapse, it's all staged and planned ahead of time. Like I said in previous videos, the Jewish Zionists, they can collapse the system anytime they want. They can collapse it tomorrow if they want to. So with that in mind, we see what's going on. But it's interesting that they're doing all these meetings and everything. Now, also, it could be a mental psyop. That is also the case too, that they could just be, saying that they're holding these meetings to keep people on edge and to keep people excited. That's also another thing too. So it's just good to keep everything open and in perspective. But we're going to keep going because it says, President Obama's meeting with Fed Chair Yellen. It is rare for presidents to meet with the chair of the Federal Reserve. The last time President Obama met with Janet Yellen was in November of 2014, so that was a year and a half ago. It is even more rare for the Vice President Joe Biden of the U.S. to join them. In fact, I've heard but haven't verified that it has never happened in a suddenly called meeting with the Fed before. And that's something that's been talked about too, is that it all happened suddenly. One has to wonder, what are they getting ready for? What are they doing? And what are they talking about behind closed doors? Because of course, they're never going to tell us what they're talking about, but we know better than that. And like I said, I'm just doing this so that you're aware of this and you're seeing the warning signs ahead of time and that okay, that something's actually up, something is going on, all is not well like they try to make it seem. But it goes on to say, for security reasons, the president and vice president don't regularly attend the same events. There are, of course, many planning sessions or emergency meetings where they do get together, but not with the head of the Federal Reserve. Exactly. And we know that who the crooks behind the Federal Reserve. We know the Federal Reserve is a big fraud and scam anyway. We know that they print out fake money and then lend it to the banks and the governments to keep us enslaved to the government, even though the Constitution says that they shouldn't be doing this at all. Oh, but they're doing it and getting away with it, at least not for long, because we, the ones of us who are awoke, know exactly what's going on, exactly what they're about to do, and according to them, kill the dollar. But it goes on to say emergency meetings where the VP is included in the planning session would include situations related to dire national security in the case the VP winds up having to take over. Oh yeah, because in the name of national security, oh my goodness, this threat's gonna happen. In the name of national security, we need to fight off ISIS. In the name of national security, we need to do all this stuff to arm ourselves and protect ourselves against terror. Because America really needs to protect herself against terrorists, doesn't she? Oh my goodness, it's time to wake up. But it goes on to talk about they claim to be talking about longer term economic outlook. Yeah, right. That's what they want us to believe and what they were talking about. But it goes on to say from the San Francisco Gate that White House spokesman Josh Earnest said both Obama and Yellen focused on ways to expand economic opportunities for the U.S. middle class, even though they're the ones killing the middle class, literally, and they know that. Why? The UN Agenda 2030, the plan for what? Depopulation, socialism, put everybody on the same level. That is exactly what they are going for. But of course, the meetings were extremely rare, and it says the president has been pleased with the way that she has fulfilled what is a critically important job. Ernest said he added that Obama has the utmost respect for the independent nature of her role. Give me a break. We know exactly what they are getting ready for. It's only a matter of time until all goes down the drain. Now, here's an overview of some of the things that have been going on this week, but on this past Tuesday, or a couple of days ago, Tuesday's especially called meeting for the Board of Governors under expedited procedures. And this was an announcement that the Fed posted at the end of last week for Monday's meeting. It says advance notice of a meeting under expedited procedures. It is anticipated that the closed meeting of the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System at 11:30 a.m. on Monday, April 11, 2016, as set forth in Section 26LB.7 of the Board's rules regarding public observation of meetings at the board's offices at the 20th Street and C Street North NW, Washington, D.C. And it goes on to say review and determination by the Board of Governors of the advance and discount rates to be charged by the Federal Reserve Banks. The final announcement of matters considered under expedited procedures will be available in the board's Freedom of Information and Public Affairs offices and on the board's website following the closed meeting for more. And then it says an advanced meeting of a meeting under expedited procedures, and it talks about the different meetings. Okay, so 2 expedited closed meetings all in the same week. No surprise there. Like I said, it could be another mental psyop. I don't know, but it's just interesting. I'm just bringing it to your attention so that you know all about it. Then the article goes on to talk about the recession that has already begun. Atlanta Fed revises U.S. GDP down again, and we know, of course, it's all a big scam and a psyop anyway, because they're staging and they're staging the collapse ahead of time, because that's what they want us to do, and that's what they want us to think. But they want us to think, oh, it's really real. Oh my goodness, we need to do something. How can we stop this? Even though they're the ones perpetuating it, so they revise it down to 0.1% again, and it's only going to get worse from there. And then it says U.S. banks are expected to report worst quarter financially since start of the Great Recession. And I also believe that many stores and companies, especially in retail stores, they have already reported the worst quarter for 2015. So you can only imagine it's only getting worse. And it says analysts say it has been the worst start to the year since the financial crisis in 2007 to 2008, and expect poor first quarter results when reporting begins this week. And also those who are in the mortgage industry have also said that the economy is bad, and that it hasn't been this bad since around the time of 2007 and 2008. You can also look at the prices of crude oil, and that will also tell you that it's just as bad, and that you're seeing similar patterns like you did in 2007, 2008. I've also done videos on that. So for those of you who try to say, oh, everything's okay, the economy's going to bounce back and everything's going to be fine, and we're just going to keep living in this la-la land called America, I suggest you really wake up quick, fast, and in a hurry. And it even says some banks are expected to report the worst results in over 10 years, including Goldman Sachs, even though we know they are the ones who fund the Federal Reserve, among many other fraudulent banks. We know exactly what's going on, but also there's banking crises that are going on, banks running out of money, and we see that with the bail-ins because they're planning it and staging it ahead of time. If you have not gotten your money out of the banks, I suggest you do so, but remember to do it in increments. Now, the article goes on to talk about how the bank in Austria and what happened with the Austrian bail-ins. You can watch my video on that for more. But then it also goes on to talk about the Italian banks and the crash landing approach and how the Italian economy is not doing well at all. It even says from Contra Corner that Italian bank shares have lost almost half their value so far this year amid investor worries over a 360 billion euro pile of non-performing loans, equivalent to about a fifth of GDP. Could that have had anything to do with the flurry of bank meetings in the US? Could that have anything to do with the planned stage agenda of crashing the economy worldwide on purpose? And not to mention next week, I think there's reports speculating that China's supposed to introduce the yen as the world currency, or one of them. What is really going on here, folks? I hope you're seeing the stage collapse that is even taking place right in front of us, because it's only going to get worse from here. And of course, like I said, they're doing it in steps and in increments. It's not going to be one giant collapse. They're doing it in steps and increments because they want to make you think and make you stay in the same mindset and make you stay docile to, oh, nothing's happening here, everything's okay, when we know better than that. Now, this article is from Zero Hedge, and it talks about some of the same things that we've already talked about the emergency meetings, as well as capital markets and the banking failures that have been going on in the past couple of months on an expedited level. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is because for those of us who are awoke, we know full well what they're preparing for, and we know full well that this is how they're going to institute martial law in America, if not Europe as well. We know that for a fact, and we know they're vehemently preparing for that, and they're trying to keep people mentally conditioned to make them think, oh, everything's okay, oh, nothing's wrong over here, oh, don't worry, carry on. I'm telling you, it's time to see the agenda for what it is, because everything has an agenda. They don't just meet up for no reason, and they don't just meet up to talk about how they want to enslave us even more for no reason. Now, whether or not they actually do meet up and whether or not they have other under the table meetings, well, we'll never know. But we do know that they're planning and staging this collapse, and we know it's only a matter of time. Like I said, when it happens, it's going to happen. And when it happens, it's not going to be good. Because see, what a lot of people don't understand is that they're planning all this stuff simultaneously. They're planning all this stuff at the same time, folks. When the banks stop working, when the ATMs stop working, and when you can no longer get any money, well, guess what? What are you going to do? You can't do anything. They're going to stop that, as well as stop the EBT, as well as stop all this stuff, as well as stop food trucks coming into stores, as well as stop all the drinks from coming in, as well as stop the plumbing, as well as stage these planned earthquakes and other so-called natural disasters and pandemics, and blame it on climate change. And I know this sounds crazy, but I honestly would not be surprised if they make it so that it snows in the winter. It would not surprise me. Maybe not this winter, I don't know. That's just something to think about, because they're going to try to blame it and push this agenda of climate change any way they can. But it goes on to say from the NBR that ASB says internet banking glitch solved. I've done many videos and topics on banking glitches. Why do you need to watch out for banking glitches specifically? Because banking glitches is how they're preparing for the economic collapse in America, to steal your money from your banks and to make it so that a staged collapse happens so that you are without nothing. And when you wake up one morning, you will have no money and go nuts, because you will not be able to buy food and stuff unless you prepare and see the warning signs ahead of time. But the report actually says that NBR finally regained access to its ASB business account on Wednesday morning, a day after an outage hit. See below. The bank ended up having to liaise with NBR's IT contractor. ASB's operations manager said it would cover the charges. It says the glitch that took its mobile fastnet and some business banking services offline from around 8 a.m. this morning has been resolved. Anyone still having problems with their logon should clear their web browser's cache and try again, the bank says. Now, of course, they're going to blame it on a virus and a banking virus and a glitch and everything. No, they're testing it. They, as in the elite, are testing this stuff ahead of time to see if to see when they can collapse it. And this isn't the only bank they've tested. They've tested many banks a couple months ago, and I'll leave the video below so you can see it. And like I said, you have to wonder why this is the case, why right now, and what are they getting ready for. Oh, but that's not the only bank. Trust me, it's not, because this bank also too, BNZ Mobile and Internet Banking hit by glitch, and this was back in March, and the other report was back a couple days ago on April 12th, but this one says BNZ customers are struggling to make online payments, and I believe this is a bank in New Zealand. So wow, we're seeing it in New Zealand. Okay, BNZ has been hit by a glitch in its online and mobile banking. Customers were unable to use services for several hours on Tuesday afternoon. Some took to the bank's Facebook page to complain. Diane Austin said, "My poor staff won't get their wages." Another complaint, he was meant to have been paid, blah, 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 very frustrating, blah, blah, blah. Why is this so important? Is because, well, in my last report, I reported that this was going on not only in India and in England and Scotland, but now it's going on in New Zealand too, and it's been going on in America as well. Why are they doing this worldwide, and why are they doing this with places that are affiliated with England specifically? Very interesting and suspicious indeed. I'm telling you, all have to really pay attention to this stuff. Pay attention to the signs and the warning signs, because they are there, and because I'm telling you, they're obviously getting ready for stuff. They don't just plan this stuff ahead of time. They don't just do it just to be doing it. They don't just do it because it's fun to do and because they have nothing better to do. They do it because of the plans of the New World Order depopulation, plans that have been written out in the protocols of the elders of Zion for over 100 years now. How did they know about World War I and World War II before it even happened? 40 years before it happened, to be exact. How did they know that stuff? And how did they know? You can even look up Albert Pike. How did they know about Islam and how they'd use Islam as a means for World War III, so-called? How did they know that? Because we're seeing that manifest today. Very interesting and suspicious indeed. Now, this report came a couple of days ago from Now the End Begins. And like I said, I try to report from alternative media sites and independent sites when it comes to this type of stuff, because they tell you much more than what mainstream will tell you. Because all mainstream is telling you about is to worry about whether to vote for Hillary, Bernie, or Donald Trump, when that doesn't even really matter right now. But it goes on to say bank tellers are being replaced with touchscreen navigators as technology takes over. Now, I thought this was interesting because it reminds me, and when I think of this, it sounds just like what drones and robots, cyborgs, and everything else. Is that what they're getting ready for? Experts say the trend is likely to be magnified in the Washington area, where an influx of young professionals and tech-savvy customers is ushered in a number of high-tech branches that require few employees. Recent bank mergers and bank closings, or branch closings, have also contributed to the shrinkage in the pool of jobs. And like I said in my other report, don't you see what's going on with the cyborgs and the robots? What are they trying to do? They're trying to replace you. They don't want you taking over anything. They want to replace you quick, fast, and in a hurry to get rid of jobs. And it says, when Wells Fargo opened its first high-tech branch 3 years ago in the district's Noma neighborhood, it did away with desks and replaced traditional counters with large touchscreen ATMs. Also gone from its new location, tellers. Why? Instead, the 1,000-square-foot branch has a handful of tablet-toting employees to help customers navigate technology to deposit checks, apply for loans, or open savings accounts. The number of bank tellers in the region has dropped by nearly half in the past 10 years, from 10,980 in 2005 to not even 6,000 in 2015, outpacing a 17% drop nationally. That's nearly a sixth. According to data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, overall employment in the Washington region rose 7.3% in the same period, and we know how they're planning to get rid of Washington, D.C. and destroy it altogether, whether you want to believe that or not. Just look at the riots that are going on and ask George Soros. He'll tell you all about that. Anyway, median annual pay for tellers, meanwhile, has risen from 35% to $32,250 as tellers are increasingly required to be well-versed in technology. A recent report by Citigroup estimates that an additional 30% of U.S. banking jobs could be eliminated by 2025, if there even is a 2025, as financial firms shutter branches and invest more heavily in technology. So traffic in branches is down, and the ATM has started to spiral 25 or 30 years ago, and not that many people are visiting banks, so that is why they're doing all this innovation technology. But I really believe that it also has to do with the cyborgs and what the draconian measures and laws that are going to soon be announced in America. They need you to get ready for all this technology. They've mentally conditioned us to make it okay to talk to a teller, to talk to a robot, to talk to automated voicemails rather than talking to each other. They've already conditioned. So it's only a matter of time until they place, robots in and, get us ready for cyborgs into what the new world order, draconian laws, the military police state, cloning, all of that plays a role and factor in this. And I hope you're seeing it for what it really is. And I hope you're seeing the truth for what it really is, because the truth shall make you free. Please seek Yahuwah and his true son, Yahusha, because time is running out. It's only a matter of time until all this stuff is fulfilled, literally. And I hope you're seeing that with both eyes open. This is Truth Unveiled. Shalom.